My wife confessed to cheating on me for 4 years because she was bored and left me for weeks. Now she wants me back. For 17 years, my wife, 39F, and I, 40M, had been wed. Our 3 girls are 11, 13, and 15. We have been together for around 23 years and were high school sweethearts. Although I don't know much, this is the only information I know. 3 days ago, my wife returned home from her job. On the 4th day, she had to go to work, but first she quickly packed an overnight bag and departed. Our oldest daughter was home when she left, so that's the only reason I know this. My wife was sobbing and upset that she was hardly able to speak when she tried to talk to her. She was on the verge of panic. None of our calls or texts are getting a response from her. I immediately called her parents, who eventually replied that my wife is safe with them and urged me to be understanding and patient. They only said that. I attempted to get in touch with her brother, sister, and a close colleague. Her brother claimed to know nothing, and her coworker claimed that 3 days prior, she had arrived at work in the morning but had left by midday. She only knew that. There hasn't been any communication with my wife or the children since. We're not hearing anything from anyone. I'm trying to get by without her here with my 3 daughters. All I can answer when the kids ask me what's going on or what happened with mom is that she's with grandma and grandpa and that we should be understanding and patient. I can't help but want to swiftly load up the kids and head over there without warning. Sitting here in limbo is terrible, and it's just 3 hours away. The children believe we got into a heated argument and are divorcing, but that couldn't be further from the reality. We never argue. The children are aware of this. I'm not sure what's happening, but could someone please explain it logically? I'm trying to handle everything without her, but my current mental condition has me thinking in circles. Your spouse would be the first person you would notify if someone died. My wife would be the first person I would turn to for assistance if it were me, though it's possible that some old trauma was triggered. We don't know anything, nothing makes sense. I sit here in limbo with the girls, unsure of what to do. Nobody is telling us anything, and none of us know anything. It makes me anxious, afraid, irate, etc. Almost every feeling imaginable in this circumstance. Is there anyone who can think of something reasonable? Why would you do this to your family? Update 1, I apologize. I don't know much about Reddit yet, not much to share. Because I'm not really sure how to do it, I don't know how to connect my previous post. I didn't sleep last night, it was a long night. I apologize for the brief update. I read every thread yesterday and into the night, but I don't plan on using the computer much today. Today, we finally read the responses. I'll just state my knowledge and stop there. I ended up calling the cops last night as my father-in-law didn't call. A wellness check was conducted, as many of you recommended. I won't go into the storm of problems that resulted from this, but my wife has been having an affair for at least 2 years, if not more. Everyone was right. The other man reportedly died that night after suffering a heart attack on Tuesday. It seems likely that my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law have been aware of it and have been filling in for her. My wife still hasn't been in touch with either the girls or me. For the time being, I'm attempting to hide this from them, but to be honest, I don't know what to do next. I only know that, and it's enough to almost spell my demise. I appreciate all of your assistance and guidance. That's all, but I'm not sure how to get over this news. Please offer up prayers for me and the 2 of us. Update 2. A couple people have suggested this sub to me. I recently joined and have been reading a lot of postings whenever I have free time, usually at night when the day's turmoil is over. Naturally, the brain then takes over, and I have these depressive episodes. After that, I experience intense rage and then both feelings at once. It's almost impossible to sleep. Then, like a zombie, I go about my day. All the acronyms are something I'm attempting to learn. I suppose Friday was my D-Day. I initially believed my wife's affair to have lasted 2 years, but it now appears highly probable that it lasted longer. She had known the man she cheated on with AP for some time. The disclosure came after he sadly died of a heart attack. With the assistance of my eldest daughter, I continue to conduct research. I'm not yet ready to post about a lot of topics. I honestly didn't intend to keep posting about my predicament, but so many people have given me so much support and guidance that it's practically therapeutic. Knowing that so many other individuals are going through this kind of pain is painful. I'm so sorry for that. Yesterday and today, I had meetings with 2 different attorneys to go over my alternatives. I also made several calls about treatment, but where I reside, wait periods are really lengthy. I'm making an effort to follow many of the advice given by others, such as abstaining from drinking, although I don't and never have. Taking care of myself, exercising, etc. For someone my age, I'd say I'm in excellent shape, but right now I struggle to find the motivation to work out. I recognize that a lot of you will want specifics, like who, what, when, and so on, but please know that I'm simply not yet ready to go into all of that. It feels like a new bomb goes off every day, and all I want is some guidance on one item so that I might be able to get some sleep. My wife, the mother of my 3 lovely girls and my best friend since high school, was everything to me. We shake hands in secret and share inside jokes. Everything is gone. Everything. It's simply gone. I get really depressed when I reflect back on all of our years together, including every milestone and every laugh. It is incapacitating. It seems like she didn't care about any of it, and now she won't be in my future. Naturally, the "how could you" question then surfaces, and I am seized with an insatiable rage. I pound the mattress and scream into my pillow till my arms hurt. The cycle is terrible. I only go to sleep because I'm so tired, and when I wake up the mind games start over. My girls, who have been attempting to care for me as if they were my parents, receive all of my energy. They aren't treated fairly. After learning about the affair, how did you all sleep? With just your thoughts, how did you cope with the emptiness and silence at night? Aside from my daughters, I've determined that sleep must be my top priority in all of this. I'm hoping you can help though, because I simply can't. Many thanks to all of you. Update 3. I apologize for my relative inexperience on Reddit. A little more than a week has passed since my D-Day, however I'm not sure how much of my circumstances I should reiterate or repeat. I've since discovered that my wife's affair lasted for more than 4 years. No precise time frame yet. It most likely began emotionally before becoming bodily. I'm also interested in how the epidemic and lockdowns affected this. I might or might not find out the answers. In any case, my in-laws unexpectedly came to visit their grandchildren yesterday. Since the start of this ordeal, Del EW has been staying in their house, which is utterly ridiculous. Naturally, they greeted the girls for a total of 15 minutes. I have 3 girls with my wife. They then requested a private conversation with me. As you can anticipate, the chat was lengthy. I don't want to go into detail about it in this piece. In any case, my wife wants to return home but is scared of the consequences of her behavior and is unable to confront her past. Her parents also conducted extensive research to find out if I intended to file for divorce. They put a lot of effort into persuading me to forgive my wife and keep the marriage together. They wanted my wife out of their home, but it was also obvious that they were extremely humiliated and ashamed. The conversation was quite polite and courteous. I acknowledged that I misled them by claiming that I was unsure of my future intentions since I intend to get a divorce. However, I fear that if I tell my wife, I will never get the truth. And I might never understand. However, if at all feasible, I would like her to sit in front of me and explain everything. I want her to look me in the eyes and tell me everything after we've been married for 17 years, been together since high school, had 3 children, made innumerable memories, and experienced everything together. Additionally, I want my children to understand that I offered her the chance to apologize, explain herself, and resolve the situation as responsible adults. I'm constantly trying to decide which course will be best for my children. I'm not sure, perhaps I'm not doing it correctly. I can't legally bar my wife from our house. The attorney was extremely explicit about that. Therefore, even if I really don't want this right now, I can't stop my wife from coming home. In fact, my girls and I have begun to establish a pleasant routine. I therefore made a demand that, in my opinion, would be impossible to fulfill for some time. If, when my wife sat down with me face to face, looked me in the eyes, and told me everything about her affair, from beginning to end, without hesitation or more lying, I told her she may come home. She would next need to meet with the girls, provide an apology face to face, and respond to their inquiries. It's only fair, I reasoned, since they already know. Once more, she is legally free to return home anytime she pleases and is not subject to any obligations. However, I might be able to take advantage of her fear of us. Is that incorrect? Here, I'm not attempting to be cunning or dishonest. I simply don't want to live together just yet. If I can postpone it, our state has a 90-day waiting period before a divorce may occur. In any case, she will inevitably return home. Life will continue despite this disaster, and ultimately we will both need to return to our jobs. I simply wish to extend it in order to plan and improve my emotional and mental well-being. My wife says she doesn't want a divorce, but she has been texting the females. She apologizes to them over and over again. The texts have been shown to me. She inquires about me every day, and the truth about what she has done to us is really getting to her, especially in the past few days. How can I handle this? Was my request stupid? My wife is probably going to return home sooner rather than later. Right now, I have faith in my future. This doesn't scare me because I know it will happen eventually. As we proceed, I simply want to choose what's best for my girls and subsequently for myself. I am grateful to everyone who has been providing support, guidance, and encouragement. Update 4. I apologize for the length, but I just need to get this out of the way. It will be a bit of an anticlimax. Despite the awful weekend, my wife returned home yesterday. As the week progressed, there was a fair lot of build-up to it. Normally, when she walked through the doorway, I would embrace and kiss her, but this time, there was just this incredibly awkward tension between us. Before she spoke, she really approached me and attempted to embrace me, but I turned her away. Unbelievable. As though nothing had occurred. Naturally, I begged her to tell me everything after she calmed down. She stated once more that she is not yet ready. The outcome was the same when we chatted on the phone earlier this week. She simply reiterated that she wasn't prepared for that when I maintained that the only requirement for her to return home was that she loved the family enough to justify her absence of over 3 weeks. I took a few long breaths and tried to gather myself, even though it took a lot to keep from screaming at her. I didn't succeed. I abruptly stated after the first of many lengthy pauses that she had been having an affair with a coworker for more than 4 years, that she had planned to leave me for another man, that she had ghosted her entire family, and that she now enters the room without meeting the one requirement I had requested, and that I wanted a divorce. I suppose this is where the strangeness began. It was clear from her facial expression and body language that she was unaware of my level of knowledge regarding her affair. She gave me a wide-eyed look before simply standing in the kitchen and gazing at the floor. She remained silent and stern. This is not what I was anticipating at all. Perhaps an emotional outburst, a tearful confession, or even her cursing and screaming at me, accusing me of having the affair. Not this response, but rather a somber, "Okay, let's sit down and talk this out." To be honest, we must have stood in complete quiet for 5 minutes in the kitchen. It was simply the most peculiar thing I had ever encountered. Both she and I were obviously at a loss for words. I had read all of your remarks and suggestions regarding my predicament. I even made notes. I had prepared myself for every eventuality this conversation could bring, with the exception of this one, while I sat in front of a mirror. I ultimately made the decision to document what I knew about her affair at that precise moment. I may have been foolish, but I told her what I knew, albeit with some assumptions about how she met AP, her sister's participation, what transpired during COVID, etc. All she could do was look at the floor. She didn't say anything, so I became more and more irate, but I did everything in my power to avoid becoming profane or raising my voice. At last, I calmed down. Another long uneasy pause followed. Sadness replaced anger when everything became clear. Then I gently questioned her about what I had done to make her leave. Was I ever loved by her? Was he worth it too? She remained silent. Didn't move. Remained motionless, nothing at all from her. No sobs, no regrets, no shouting, no justification. She simply stood with her head down, nothing. This was painful. Perhaps this was more painful than D-Day. Not sure whether I would have moved, I just stood there looking at her. Then, of course, things got worse. The whole interaction was being overheard by our girls. I'm just so damned foolish. Over the past few weeks, I've been putting a lot of effort into attending to their needs and putting them first, but after I confronted my wife, I became emotional and stopped caring about where they were. Our oldest daughter, who had a lot of pent-up rage, stormed downstairs and screamed. My wife hurried to the bedroom and locked the door. We are currently at that point. Before I went to sleep last night, I could hear my wife sobbing for the majority of the night. Only our youngest has attempted to communicate with her. The others have stayed away from her. I'm going to propose that she remain with her sister until we can complete the divorce, if I can muster the confidence to do so. However, she still calls this place home. If we all have to live with her, it will only be a sad situation. You were all right about my wife, and I was incorrect. I was mistaken about every year we spent together, every memory, and every moment that changed our lives. I thought she would fall to her knees and ask for forgiveness. I really believed that she would confess the truth and repent for everything that had happened over the previous 4 years, thus clearing her of any blame. We are not worth it to this woman, who once drove back to a farmer's market after realizing she had been handed $10 more in change than she was supposed to. She doesn't value me, perhaps I never was. What comes next? It was really unpleasant at home today. The daughters and I made an effort to continue as we had for the previous 2 weeks, but it is obviously not feasible. All I want to do is move on from this whole situation, from the divorce to the uncomfortable conversations to the anticipated battles, arguments, and drama. How did you handle having to live with your WS, especially if you have children? I am aware that this is only the start. I keep reading blogs that say things will get better, but I'm a long way from that. Right now, I can't stop wanting to yell at every opportunity. Naturally, I'm making every effort to keep the girls' minds calm, but I'm not sure whether I can sustain it for 3 months. Before all of this is finished, school will begin. This is my life now, I suppose. I appreciate everyone's strong interest in me. I'm not sure if the worst is over or not, but I would appreciate any help you can give me to get through this next stage. Update 5. Since my WW returned home and I found out about her affair, I've been in a horrible mood. For my daughters, I've been doing my best to pretend. I make an effort to think and speak appropriately, but tonight I must face the reality. It comes in waves, as many of you post every day, but tonight I was struck by a very large one and became somewhat agitated. My WW has yet to get a lawyer despite the divorce being filed. And once more, I'm attempting to be as gentle and patient as I can in this situation because I'm beginning to see the possibility of an uncontested divorce that we primarily manage ourselves. But I'm not sure after tonight. We've been living together throughout the week, and because WW works so near to our family home, she spends Friday evenings at her sister's and Sunday nights at home. However, if there is no traffic, her sister is an hour away. It's been a habit of basically avoidance over the past few weeks, with WW essentially keeping to herself and the girls and I trying to go about our daily lives regularly. Even though we have informal conversations every evening, my oldest daughter and my WW have stopped talking after a few heated arguments. Right now, it's for the best. I've been following a lot of your advice lately, in addition to what I've read. I put a lot of effort into maintaining my self-control around my wife, and even though it requires all of my strength and willpower, I've been brief and uninterested in our small conversations, although always being courteous and respectful. The past 2 Fridays, up until now, she has arrived home from work, gathered a few things, and left for her sister's for the weekend before I have even returned from work. Not tonight though. When I got home, she was waiting for me in the kitchen. I attempted to ignore her tonight, but she gently took my hand and asked if I was going to treat her this way because she wasn't ready to discuss her affair with me. By the way, since everything went viral about a month ago, this is the first time she has ever spoken about her infidelity. I made an effort. I swear to you, I tried to just walk away and bite my tongue, but I became angry because our daughters weren't home at the time. I then released all of my vices, hurts, aches, anger, and miseries. I let her handle everything. I went on for so long I can't even remember. I completely forgot what time was. I did become a little animated and loud at times, and I did raise my voice. I simply broke down and told her how devastated I am, how much pain I endure every day, and everything that has been haunting me and that I have been holding back. I mean, if I tried to summarize what I said, this piece would be 4,000 words long. I had no intention of stopping once I got rolling. Naturally, I broke down and became tearful once more. After this, I was furious with myself. Damn it, I've been doing great. She reached me. I allowed her to affect me. I was aware that it would occur. I was aware. Horrible. I can only express so much in the waiting room, and it has been building for a while. Additionally, WW genuinely broke down and became emotional for the first time. She started crying furiously, which surprised me. Unfortunately, seeing that she was experiencing the same pain as I was made me pleased. I wish I didn't care, but it felt good to watch her finally cry since it showed that there was someone with some empathy inside of her. Surprisingly, she apologized several times as I was exploding. She would only mutter, "I'm so sorry," while sobbing in an awful way. Eventually, though, I left the kitchen before she could gather herself enough to say anything more. I begged her to stop bothering me. That's what occurred. She spent some time in the kitchen before heading back to her sister's house. After a half hour, the girls realized something had happened when they got home. Although it's difficult to conceal, I wasn't prepared to discuss anything and don't believe they should be aware of this. Do they? I don't want to stop the 2 youngest from making development because they have been doing a lot better. I also don't want to add fuel to my oldest's fury by telling her about this. I detest this so much. I detest it. I ought to have remained composed. I should have simply ignored my WW and walked straight by her. Right now, I'm not sure. Looking back, it seems like she was merely attempting to bring up her affair but was unsure of how to do so. Obviously, she didn't go very far because I blew out. I am now genuinely concerned for her. I don't want her to suffer any harm, but I am aware that many of you will be critical of me for this. With almost everyone ignoring her, she has been alone with her thoughts and secluded. Although it's true that she deserves it, she is still a person and the mother of my children. What a blow to me. I'm really disappointed in myself. I apologize for the lengthy tirade. I also yelled at my brother over the phone. I'll try to start over on Monday, man. I'm only a human. I must admit that it felt wonderful to vent to her, but now I'm feeling regret. Is it better to text my wife or to ignore her? I'm a complete wreck. However, I appreciate you listening, providing me with the help I need to get through this, and giving me all of your suggestions. We have all begun treatment, so that's something in the middle of the turmoil. But this is really, really difficult, just really difficult. Update 6. Thank you for your concern. I am aware that many of you have contacted me. The majority of you were right. Things aren't going well, and I haven't had any opportunity to access the internet. I was hoping to take a vacation from the internet, but I've been regressing a lot this week. It has simply been terrible. My wife has been really kind and has been apologizing for her affair, crying, smothering me, and knocking on my door at night to talk. She hasn't really left me alone this week. I've spoken to her when I felt like it, but I've also mostly ignored her. On Wednesday night, I finally lost my temper with her and told her to stop bothering me. Then it occurred last night. After her affair blew up, my soon-to-be ex-wife returned home a little more than a month ago. Now that we've started this awkward cohabitation routine, she came into my room after the daughters had gone to bed and begged to speak with me alone. In contrast to how she had been approaching me all week, I fed her first, but in order to avoid making the same mistake twice in front of the kids, we finally went to the garage and sat in my car. I apologize for the lengthy apology. She filled me in on everything. We spent about 3 hours out there, she said. I'm not sure how much to divulge. I couldn't sleep, so I stayed up all night listening to her cry again. I also shed tears. I would then become so enraged that I would have to force myself not to walk in and yell at her. Then sob, then rage, and so forth. I apologize if I don't reply to anyone for a day or so, but I need to get this off my chest before I try to sleep. Having my WW apologize and ask for another chance all the time hasn't helped. I had to leave for a few hours tonight as well in order to avoid her. Simply put, being around her hurt so much. In any case, her sister introduced her to her AP approximately 5 years prior to COVID, seemingly with no romantic ambitions. However, he was a higher up at the company she presently works for and wanted to work for. She was able to convince him that her affair was not the reason behind her wish to change careers. However, it goes without saying that she had more motivation after changing employment. The AP started flirting with her once she was hired. Texting at first, followed by images, and then more texting. Then, right before COVID struck, things got physical. She wanted to tell me right away after confessing to her sister, but she chose to keep it to herself. Naturally, my wife claimed that she went NC with her AP shortly after, but he contacted her again as soon as the limitations and lockdowns were relaxed, and she continued to speak with him until the physical aspect of the affair resurfaced. She claimed to have halted the affair a few times out of remorse once businesses resumed operations, but she continued returning to him, thus it never ended. In essence, she provided a great deal of information. She recited the full 5-page packet of handwritten notes detailing her affair history, responding to questions as she went. She made false claims about weekend getaways with the girls, work-related travel, traffic bottlenecks, problems with her parents, shopping excursions, etc. The list was long, as I had expected. She told me so many falsehoods that I simply believed everything she said without question. They were merely a front to be with him though. It only made me feel worse to hear it all. Everyone was right. Her love, however, never truly wavered. She never became aloof during all of this, unlike what I frequently read. Although intimacy did shift, it wasn't enough for me to raise concerns. In any case, she acknowledges that she fell in love with AP and desired a life with him. He promised her luxury items, trips, and everything he could do for her. He was older, divorced, and unmarried. She claimed that the excitement of being with him was too great to resist and began to fantasize about fleeing her duties with the family. She remarked about how the everyday routines of family life bored her. She appeared to be honest, quite emotional, and extremely open. Halfway through, I started crying and lost my temper. As you can think, hearing it all hurt. Naturally, once she finished her confession, she told me how much she loved me and always would, and that she would stop at nothing to try to keep the marriage intact. Many of you anticipated this, yet it all seems so phony to me, as if it had been practiced. Having spent more than half of my life with this woman, I can detect when she is acting shady. I think it doesn't matter if I'm mistaken, but I was more composed than I was the week before. Nevertheless, I became irate and said a few hurtful things, such as making fun of her AP for having several girlfriends, of whom she was only one that he was prepared to discard. She appeared pretty offended about that. When I think about this moment, when she would finally reveal all the one-liners I might say to her or things I could say to hurt her back, a million thoughts crossed my mind. I couldn't think of hundreds of answers during the emotional moment the other night, but I knew I would ask. If AP were still alive and she had to choose between me and him, who would she pick? She hesitated and then whispered, "That's not fair." I pressed the subject, and then she eventually stated she'd, of course, select me. In reaction, I said that she was lying again, which was why I was divorcing her. The last thing she said was that she began to cry. We spent some time in the automobile. She continued to cry, but I was exhausted, so I simply informed her that we were divorcing and that we owed it to the kids to be there in their lives, to be good parents, and to get along amicably. In addition, I said that I hoped she was a decent enough person to end our divorce amicably and fairly after all the suffering she had caused me. That would demonstrate her true affection for me. Please realize that I'm not a petty person and that I didn't intentionally mean to hurt her when I told her that I had stolen anything from another website. It just seemed like the right way to wrap things up. However, I truly meant what I said and did. After telling her that I would have loved her forever and leaning over to kiss her on the forehead, I got out of the car and went to bed. That was it. Naturally, I didn't get much sleep the night before, and now I'm having trouble falling asleep tonight. I have no idea what will happen next. One positive, I suppose, is that she no longer has the chance to challenge the divorce. However, I have yet to speak with my attorney. I'm crying once more and reverting to my angry and depressed states. Hearing everything last night was really difficult, even though I could have avoided it all. She may have lied and made it up too, now that I know. Who knows? However, it appeared to go well with everything I had assembled during the previous month. For the time being, that's it. It seems like this never ends. I feel strong again after a few good days, and then something else happens. Even though it's only been days, it feels like months have passed. However, I will attempt to get some rest. Imagine that the one lady you have ever loved and kissed, the love of your life, informs you that she cheated on you for more than 4 years because she was bored. Had no relationship problems, no dead bedroom, no falling out of love, no growing apart, nothing of the sort. Merely due to her boredom. I'm not sure if that makes it better or worse. Thank you for reading and for your assistance. It was a rough couple of nights. Horrible. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My daughter was invited to perform at her cousin's wedding but was later smeared online because her performance drew more attention than the bride. My F49 cousin, F23, asked my daughter, F16, to perform at her wedding reception, but became bitter upon seeing the positive reception to her act. She has since posted about her online, and my daughter is considering quitting original post. I hope this is okay to share here. The reason I'm posting is because of my daughter who's been hurting in the aftermath of a recent performance. I'm sorry in advance for how long this turned out, but any advice from fellow aerialists would be greatly appreciated. My cousin Dana, not real name, had her wedding 2 weeks ago, and she asked if my daughter could perform at her reception. My daughter, Jane, also fake name, has practiced Silk's Lyra for the past few years at a nearby circus studio, and she's also performed with through the studio at small gigs. She hopes to continue into adulthood and become a professional teacher, but this recent incident has shaken her confidence. She has a private Instagram to document her progress performances, and I only post certain performances on my Facebook. Her first gig with the studio and her first recital to name a few we're proud of. Some of our relatives saw her performances through my socials, and they watched her perform at her studio's Christmas recital when we hosted Christmas at our home a few years back. Something that surprised her when they visited early to see her. I love how they coordinated that, and Jane said it was her loudest cheering section to date. Dana was one of the relatives who came up early to see her Christmas recital, and she's always been super supportive. She asked me if Jane would be willing to perform at the reception, and I asked on her behalf. Jane was honored and excited when I did, and we already had a portable rig for her too. Though we ended up renting a taller one from her studio. Dana got the idea from a YouTube video featuring an aerialist who performed at a wedding reception, and she showed us while requesting white silks and a white outfit. We scoped out the venue and purchased white silks along with a white costume that Dana approved of, and Jane was really excited throughout. Jane even worked on choreography to a song that Dana requested, and she put a lot of time into it, even asking one of her coaches to help her with it. Dana insisted on paying her for the gig despite Jane not expecting to be paid, and she paid her a few hundred. However, Dana's had a change of heart. Jane received a standing ovation after her performance that surprised her, but we didn't know anything was wrong until Dana went on Facebook a few days later. Dana said she didn't approve of the outfit Jane wore and that she specifically told her to not wear white. She also said my husband and I pressured her to have Jane perform and that the performance gave off an unclassy vibe. Lies that my husband and I couldn't believe. We sent Dana numerous costume links, and we purchased the one she liked. There was also nothing wrong with Jane's performance. Dana was one of the people cheering afterwards. Jane received nothing but compliments afterward, but I'm disgusted that she had to see that post after all the work she put into it. The post also had comments disabled for what it's worth. I called Dana to confront her about the lies, but she didn't pick up numerous calls. I then called her parents who, like us, had received messages about her post, and they said that Dana was wrong. They apologized on her behalf and said they were also disgusted. Dana's mom also said that Dana vented to her before making her post a few days after the reception. Dana told her she regretted asking Jane to perform given the attention, compliments and cheers she received for it. Her mom also said that she felt upstaged with Jane wearing white and having to hear how good she was. Dana's parents tried to call her after she made her post, but she didn't answer after their previous conversation ended with her parents telling her she shouldn't be bitter because she specifically asked Jane to perform. Dana's parents reported the post along with us/others, and we've told the truth to those who reached out along with a post to explain our side, stand up for Jane. We have text proof of sending costume links that Dana chose from. Dana's parents also requested to talk to Jane on the phone to apologize for Dana's behavior, and my husband and I told Jane that Dana was wrong, and that we'll be distancing ourselves from Dana permanently. Dana's parents were surprised at her behavior, and we were too having seen her grow up. Granted, we only see extended family for Thanksgiving and Christmas because we live far, but other relatives were surprised too as it seemed to come from left field. Maybe there's a side of Dana we'll never know from our limited holiday, milestone interactions, but our focus is Jane. We've tried to cheer Jane up by offering to take her to dinner among other activities, but she's been hurting, which is why I'm here. Jane hasn't practiced, at home or the studio, since the reception. And I don't want to invade her space at her studio by telling anyone there, in case she doesn't want anyone to know. She asked me to return the white silks and costume after being so excited to receive them. She also said she's going to take an extended break from aerial photography to reconsider if she wants to continue. Aside from aerial photography, she's taken a break from seeing non-aerial friends too, choosing to pretty much keep to herself. We would appreciate any advice from fellow aerialists on how to lift her spirits. We remind her of how we're proud of her, along with the many compliments she received, but she's asked for space and to not talk about it. We're going to respect that and let time do its thing, but we'll consider any advice from other aerialists who can relate to the time and work she put in. Sorry for this being so long, but we appreciate anyone who reads and takes the time to reply. Comments from the first post. Some meet with skin. This is a rare story on this site where everyone, except the villain, does everything right. If this happened to an adult or even an older teenager, she would probably still be hurt, but be able to see that Dana is the one with the issue. But at 16, she's still forming her idea of herself. It sounds like she's taking this all on as a reflection of herself. I'm not someone who can be in the spotlight. My desire to perform hurts my family. I would really consider therapy. You could say all the right things to her, and I bet you have, but at 16 it's hard to hear your mom. Alternatively, and I'm sorry to say this, but is it possible that Dana's new husband gave Jane any inappropriate attention? That might explain why Dana is so upset when she presumably should have known exactly what to expect, although certainly wouldn't excuse it. If there were any opportunities for Jane and the new husband to be alone, I would really look into that also, because it would also explain why Jane hasn't practiced since the reception even though the drama started a few days later. It is an extreme place to go, but I would just ask yourself if there was an opportunity for him to be inappropriate because she is withdrawing from her entire social life. When I was a teenager, driving up to the next city helped me sometimes. Want to take a drive? Is still a question I ask myself when I feel stuck and hopeless. Go to the big aquarium and get cannolis at the outlet mall or something equally random. Maybe she'll open up or get out of her head, or maybe y'all will just have a nice day. Lots of love to you and your family. Mistral 19. Jealousy is horrible, and Dana has just made herself look bad to anyone that came to the wedding. Also, just for reference, I have performed at multiple weddings and have always had a white costume. It suits the theme and is no way comparable to a wedding dress. Leslie Barbnope. I always see aerialists in white at weddings. Take comfort in the internet OP, and hopefully they can use it as a defense with Dana. If she wants to be that way, just post the receipts of how she asked her what to wear, etc. If she's willing to say that for a 16-year-old. Or let it go, it'll pass, because I promise Dana will have some new crazy thing to do very soon. These types always do. Chelsea Sphere 89. The bride is petty, immature and ridiculous. First off, you must see that. Help her see it too if she doesn't already. When people show you who they are, listen. This is a painful, but valuable lesson that your daughter is learning very early in her performance teaching career. Just like any obstacle or difficulty in life standing between us and the things we desire, she has the choice to either let it beat her down, or let it lift her up and make more determined than ever. If she truly wants this and does eventually go on to be an aerial coach and/or performer, she will face even more challenges. This is only serving to prepare her to face those. Making art is vulnerable. Sometimes people won't like it. But that tells you more about them than about you most of the time. We'll love dogs. Dana wanted her wedding to be all about her, which is fair to an extent, but obviously not to this extent, and I think she was happy to have a beautiful performance done for her, but forgot that people will congratulate the performer, rather than the person who hired the performer. Given how extreme the response was, I would be a bit worried what someone else mentioned about the outside chance that Dana's husband said did something inappropriate, but my guess, and hope, is it's just a general attention thing. Regardless, it sounds like you and Dana's parents are handling things as best you can. Defending your daughter but respecting her privacy and boundaries sounds exactly like the right thing to do. Well done you. I would just continue to be there for your daughter in a low-pressure way and make sure she knows she has safe people to talk to whenever she's ready. Maybe see if there are any non-aerial activities any of her friends are down to do with her. Maybe something like rock climbing, which can feel less performance-oriented and attention-grabbing but can still feel fun for an aerialist because there's a fair amount of strength crossover. Hopefully she'll be comfortable with aerial photography again in future, but I think just trying to help her not socially withdraw too much would be good for her well-being for now. So sorry she's going through this. She sounds like a great kid and a very talented aerialist. Update. Before I get into what's happened since my last post, I want to thank everyone who took the time to comment. 2 pieces of advice really stood out, and I'll get to them shortly. Since my original post, Dana's Facebook post is gone. I don't know if she deleted it or enough people reported it for Facebook to remove it, but we're glad it's gone. She never apologized to us, or Jane, or even bothered to call, so our position on being permanently done with Dana stands. My husband and I made a post on my Facebook addressing the lies she spewed about our daughter, and we shared photo proof of Dana's text where she approved of Jane's white costume from links we sent, not to mention the song choice she sent us too. Better yet, Dana's mother reposted it on her account, which really surprised me. Dana's mother wrote that they loved Jane's act and that they disapproved of Dana's actions. My husband and I also made sure that Jane was okay with us addressing it on Facebook, and she said it was fine. Normally, I wouldn't use Facebook to address drama if aimed at me, but since this involves a grown adult attacking a minor, we felt the need to address it publicly because she disparaged her publicly, and Jane will remember whether we stood up for her or not years from now. I had a chance to speak with Dana's mother since my original post on the phone, and she spoke to Dana again after our last call. Dana reiterated how she regretted asking Jane to perform, but she harped on the standing ovation that bothered her the most. Dana told her that she expected Jane to get some polite applause, but that the overwhelming response really set her over the edge because she expected the loudest cheers to be when she and her husband entered the reception, but that went to Jane instead. Dana and her husband also received a great reception when they entered the reception, but Jane's performance did too, and Dana didn't expect it. Heck, even Jane was surprised by it too. She never received a standing ovation from a solo act before. But Dana's mother believes that if Dana had asked someone to sing who received a similar reception, Dana's jealousy would have been all the same. Someone suggested seeing if Jane would be interested in speaking to a therapist given how hurtful Dana's comments could be for a teen, and Jane said she's open to it so long as it isn't a counselor at school because, as of now, she doesn't want anyone at school or her studio to know about the incident, and she vaguely told the coach who helped her choreograph that it went fine. We will respect her privacy request as it's her right to control the narrative. But in the same vein, I suggested therapy for Dana to Dana's mother since her reaction might be a bigger insecurity, and she said she'd ask. The other thing someone suggested was the possibility of Dana's husband, or anyone, making an inappropriate comment to Jane during the reception that made her shut down and not want to see friends or practice days before Dana's post. My husband decided to ask her, and Jane said no when he did. If something happened, perhaps she'd be more comfortable telling a therapist with time. But on the bright side, she said she might want to try a different aerial studio because she doesn't want to answer questions about how it went, or share a video, at her home studio, so we will help her find somewhere new as she asked. We hope she doesn't permanently leave her current studio because she has friends and coaches who are supportive, and she performs with that studio's troupe at festivals gigs. But I personally understand the need to sometimes go somewhere where nobody knows you for a break, and we hope that that will help her. She hasn't said definitely yet. But if we do, we'll take her. She still wants an extended break from aerial photography in the meantime. But even if or when she goes back, she said she may never want to perform again and would rather do it leisurely. One of the reasons she doesn't want to return to her home studio where she's a part of their troupe. She asked if we'd tell her troupe coach that she won't perform with them anymore if it comes to it. And if that's what she wants down the road, then we will. Hopefully time heals this wound and helps her at least keep the friends she has there, but we can only hope. Comments from the update. Fluffykins_pie. I'm so glad that you and the rest of the family are backing Jane up as much as possible. Hopefully the support you show her now will eventually win out over Dana's hateful behavior. I also hope that Dana actually gets therapy, because going after a minor like that was beyond out of line. Maybe the suggestion coming from her own mom will make Dana reevaluate and make some changes. But regardless, it sounds like you guys are doing a great job parenting. I'm so sorry this happened, but the absolute best thing you can do is just keep showing Jane that you have her back and it's her decision what she decides to do from here. We'd be happy to have her back if and when she decides to return to the aerial community. Half Angel. I can see the positives in here that have happened since the last post. Thank you for updating. I have been thinking of you all. It does sound like Jane is still blaming herself and that will need unlocking, as that mindset could spill over into other aspects of her life, stopping her achieving her full potential. She needs to realize that this is bridezilla jealousy that got directed towards her, nothing to do with her, and if an aunt had received that attention it too would have got squashed. Perhaps angling her to perform is fine, just never a family wedding again. And please ask her again in a few weeks' time if any inappropriate comments were made or done. Sometimes it can take a while to feel comfortable enough to say it out loud. It's not uncommon for boys to take 30 years before they say something. I feel like her coach needs to know that the performance was amazing, but to know that there was fallout afterwards. They don't need to know exactly, but it will help explain the actions and ease the road back there for Jane. Please give her a big hug from me. Now to the next story, story 2. I child-proofed for my in-laws visit, but my husband thought I was overreacting. Now he's gone further after day 1 with our nephew. Original post, I am at 26F, and my husband is 29M. We have been married for 5 years and we went to Berlin right after marriage since we both found really well-paying jobs. Meanwhile both of our families, parents, siblings etc., still live back in Greece and we usually visit back occasionally. Now me and my husband don't have any children and we don't plan to have any. We enjoy buying expensive things and experiencing things we never got to as children, such as nice furniture in our home, going to exotic restaurants with friends, travel, hobbies, and generally just our lives with each other exactly the way it is. But that's just how my husband thinks. His family is very traditional and every married couple has at least one kid. This time my husband invited my Bill and CL to visit us with their 3-year-old son for 2 weeks. This would be the first time they've traveled with their son and the first time we would be hosting our nephew at our home. Now our nephew is known to be going through the terrible twos and has been throwing tantrums and breaking things lately, so I did some child-proofing in our home a day before my in-laws were due to arrive. I removed all the glass and ceramic decor. I swapped out our linen tablecloth for a plastic one. I locked up our intoxication devices. I also covered our sofas with a plushy fabric cover. Our sofa's fabric is white cashmere, because my nephew likes to snack while watching TV and we can always take it outside and dust off food crumbs. I also changed my maid's schedule to come in 5 days a week instead of 3 so she can help prepare breakfast and make sure the house is tidy. However, when my husband saw all of my changes he kind of got upset. He told me he felt that I was preparing our house as if we were hosting messy and uncivilized people. And asked me why I don't make these changes when our friends in Berlin who have kids come over for dinner. He also said that he's never seen our friends make these sorts of changes in their own home for their kids. I don't understand this comparison at all. Coming over for dinner for 3 hours and staying at a place for a couple of weeks is very different. And we've visited our in-laws enough to see how chaotic their home can get to the point where my Bill and SIL keep mostly plastic items in their homes for convenience. AIT. Top comments. Tulip Afternoon, NTA. Instead of worrying the entire visit that their kid could ruin something expensive, the visiting parents can rest assured that the space has been child-proofed. As long as all the changes don't make the space uncomfortable, for example squeaky plastic couch covers or all decor being hidden so the place is bare, I think it makes a lot of sense. You are making the visit less stressful for everyone. Horror Reveal 7618. He told me he felt that I was preparing our house as if we were hosting messy and uncivilized people. He's quoting the definition of a toddler here. OOP is voted NTA Update 1. Same post. Edit. We hadn't spoken since we had our fight last night and my in-laws are supposed to be landing in the morning. My husband brought food from a restaurant I liked and told me he wanted to apologize. He told me he overreacted because he wasn't admitting to himself how different his brother is as a person ever since he became a dad, and that his life is going in a very different direction with more financial hardships too, and that makes him angry and helpless. He told me he misdirected his frustration at me and thought what I did was really nice, especially since he is more finicky than I am. I tried my best to make him feel not guilty and responsible for the lives and decisions of other grown-ups. But I'm so relieved he came around on his own. Update 2. Same post. Edit 2. So guys, it's officially day 1 of the in-laws visit, and my husband has now gone an extra step and put away most of the lamps in our house because they are glass and super dangerous for a toddler to be around. We have about 35 'cause we hate ceiling lights. When we picked up our in-laws from the airport and were driving them back, my nephew accidentally poured a bag of chips all over the back seat and floor mats. Everyone just laughed, but I know my husband was horrified inside, and now he's been vacuuming the backseat area for 2 hours now, lol. Oh, and in-laws super appreciated our baby proofing. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My parents kicked me out because of my sister. 6 years later, they're asking for help to support her and her 4 young children. I, 32F, am currently in charge of significant commercial development projects around New England as a successful architect at a prominent Boston firm. Nathan, a 34-year-old man who works as a project manager in sustainable development, is my fiancé. Our wedding is scheduled for the following year. On the surface, my life appears to be ideal. I have rewarding work, a wonderful relationship, and a lovely craftsman-style home that I designed extensive modifications for. However, I'm questioning everything because of a complex family situation that recently reached a breaking point. I must go into great depth about my family history in order for you to comprehend the current circumstance. I was raised in a Connecticut suburb in an upper-middle-class household. My mother, Phoebe, 56F, taught high school at a private school until she left 6 years ago, and my father, Richard, 58M, works as a corporate lawyer at a reputable business. Ashley, my younger sister, who is 30 degrees Fahrenheit, has always been the star of our family. Favoritism was evident from my earliest recollections, even if my parents would strongly dispute it if questioned. I received consecutive A's on my report card when I was 8 and Ashley was 6, and I was simply informed, "That's expected of you?" While Ashley received B's and was commended and brought out for ice cream because she was trying her best. Throughout our childhood, this trend persisted. Ashley's meager efforts were widely praised, while my accomplishments were anticipated and frequently disregarded. When I was 15, I recall one specific occurrence. I had been working on my design project for months, frequently staying up until 2 in the morning, in preparation for a national high school architectural competition. I received a minor scholarship as a result of placing second nationally. Ashley had an ordinary soccer match that day, so my parents didn't even make it to the award ceremony. "That's nice," they replied, barely taking their eyes off the TV as I brought my award home, before turning back to Ashley's dramatic account of how she nearly scored a goal. Even though my parents were clearly biased, I did well in school and in my personal life. I led multiple community service projects, kept a 4.0 GPA, and served as president of the student body. In the meantime, as Ashley approached adolescence, her actions became more alarming. When she began to slip out when I was 14, my parents told me to keep a better eye on her. She was caught stealing high-end makeup when she was 15, and they accused me of not providing her my allowance money even though she clearly needed it. The assumption that I should put Ashley's needs and interests ahead of my own was the most annoying aspect, not only the partiality. My part-time job at a local design firm, where I made coffee and filed papers, allowed me to save up $3,000 when I was 16. I intended to use it for a Columbia University summer architecture course. My parents, however, borrowed my cash to assist cover the repairs after Ashley, who wasn't supposed to be driving, smashed her boyfriend's car. They never fulfilled their commitment to reimburse me. I lost the chance to improve my college applications and the summer program opportunity. I was able to gain admission to a prominent architectural program in spite of these obstacles. In order to save money, my parents agreed to let me live at home while I was in college and to assist with my tuition. They wanted me around to assist handle Ashley, who was now in high school and becoming more disobedient by the day, so this wasn't totally selfless. I recall making several attempts to speak with Ashley about her actions. One exchange is particularly memorable. 3 months or so passed before everything collapsed. At 3 in the morning on a school night, I discovered her slinking back into the house. Assisting Ashley to climb through the window, I whispered, "Ashley, you need to be more careful. You're in your senior year, and colleges look at more than just grades." She retorted, Stop trying to be mom. Just because your life is boring and all about buildings doesn't mean mine has to be. In hindsight, I ought to have anticipated this. Ashley spent a lot of time with Tyler, her 17-year-old ex-boyfriend, who was known for being trouble. My parents viewed everyone I dated with extreme mistrust, yet they were surprisingly lenient about their relationship. My mother accused me of being envious of Ashley's vibrant social life when I attempted to voice my concerns about Tyler. 6 years ago, everything drastically altered. One day, Ashley, a senior in high school at the time, came home and declared she was expecting a child. The father was Tyler. I can still clearly recall that night. Ashley sitting on the couch with a look of fear and defiance on her face, my father pacing the living room, and my mother sobbing uncontrollably. In the confusion that ensued, my parents somehow twisted the facts to accuse me of failing to keep a closer eye on her. My mother arrived in my room the following day with news that would forever alter my course in life. Without even looking at him, she stated, "You have to move out by the end of the week." I couldn't understand. What? Why? With Tyler moving in and a baby on the way, the house isn't large enough for all of us. Ashley needs your space. One approach to support your sister at this trying period would be to move out. I made an effort to reason with her. During my third year of college, I worked part-time at a nearby architecture business and maintained a 3.9 GPA. She insisted on finding me a cheap apartment close to university, even though I just requested for a few months. The worst thing was when my father summoned me to his home office the next day. He delivered another hit while seated behind his enormous oak desk, which he had always used to frighten clients. "We won't be able to continue paying your tuition," he stated in a cold, clinical tone. "That money is necessary for Ashley and the child. You'll figure something out since you're intelligent." I stood there looking at the man who had always emphasized the value of education and accountability, suddenly severing his daughter's ties after she had done everything correctly. The irony hurt. I packed my things that evening. My father stopped me in the driveway as I was packing the final box into my car. I briefly believed that he might reconsider. Rather, he gave me a piece of paper with a list of local women's shelters on it. He said, "Just in case," and went back inside. The next phase of my life was the darkest. For 4 months, I lived in my car and, for safety, parked every night in a different Walmart lot. In the architecture firm where I worked part-time, I would change in public toilets, take a shower in the campus gym, and keep my business attire in my locker. I took a second job working as a late-night barista, frequently juggling multiple jobs while attending classes. I asked a few family members for assistance, but they all turned me down. My 53-year-old Aunt Susan, who had always expressed her pride in my accomplishments, informed me that she didn't want to become embroiled in family strife. According to my grandparents, they were too old to handle the matter. I occasionally went days without eating a decent meal, barely making it on protein bars and coffee. I frequently slept off at my desk while working on my homework in the college library, which was open 24 hours a day. I kept my GPA the same in spite of everything. My escape was architecture. I put all of my suffering and willpower into my designs. My parents never once called to see whether I was still alive during this time. Ashley didn't either. After learning that she had given birth to a boy, I made one phone call, but it was awkward and short. After that, there was no communication for 6 years. I had to start over in my life throughout those 6 years. Despite working 60-hour weeks and living in my car and then a small room in a dubious area of town, I finished with honors. A famous Boston business was interested in my final thesis project, which was a design for a sustainable community center with transitional housing that received multiple prizes. Living in a small studio apartment and trying to save as much money as I could, I began my career as an entry-level architect. Every advancement was a triumph over my past. I was managing my own projects for 4 years. My area of expertise was sustainable commercial development, and I gained recognition for my creative ideas that put the needs of people and the environment first. 3 years ago, Nathan and I met at a seminar on sustainable development. During the Q&A portion of his presentation on green construction projects, I disputed one of his claims. He invited me to continue the conversation over coffee rather than becoming defensive. Dinner evolved from that coffee into the most wholesome and encouraging relationship I've ever experienced. Nathan is well aware of my background. He was present when I purchased my first home after getting expelled. When I signed the paperwork and broke down because I was so overcome by the fact that I finally had a place where no one could make me leave, he held me. He supported my idea to refurbish it and make it an environment that reflected all of my accomplishments over the years. Through mutual contacts, I occasionally learned tidbits about Ashley's life. Shortly after the birth of their baby, she wed Tyler, but the two of them split up after 6 months. By that time, she was expecting her second kid, but the father had entirely vanished after learning of the pregnancy. She had another kid with Marcus, the man she married 2 years later, but their marriage failed when she had an affair. She is now pregnant once more and doesn't seem to know who the father is. I got a call yesterday from an unidentified number right before bed. After 6 years of stillness, my mother called. She initially pretended nothing had happened, inquiring about my life and showing interest in my accomplishments. I briefly felt like that young child again, excited to tell my mother about my achievements. I even began to tell her about my recent promotion to senior architect and my engagement. Then she revealed the true reason she had called. In order to assist Ashley and her kids, my parents want me to return to Connecticut. They say they're too old to care for 4 small children, and my father will shortly be retiring. They even had the gall to claim that, as the successful sister, it is my duty to support the family. My mother said, "You've always been the responsible one," with that cunning tone I so vividly remembered in her voice. Now more than ever, Ashley needs her big sister. Family must remain united. A chilly chuckle erupted within me. Family have to stick together? I said it again. When I was sleeping in my car, where was this family? When I was barely eating and working 2 jobs? When there was nobody for me to turn to? I went on despite my mother's attempt to stop me. "You absolutely abandoned me, kicked me out, and stopped paying for my schooling in order to help Ashley. You expect me to sacrifice my life, career, and relationship in order to clean up your mess once more now that she has continued to make bad decisions and you're sick of dealing with the fallout?" I hung up after telling her that I would never again risk my life for Ashley. Since then, family members who turned down my request for assistance 6 years ago have been bombarding my phone with messages accusing me of being callous and asserting that family helps family. Nathan completely agrees with my decision to uphold my boundaries, but other people argue that since they are still family and retaliation won't mend old hurts, I should at least have a meeting with them. But this doesn't seem like vindictiveness to me. I saw it as defending the life I created on my own, after being deserted by those who were meant to keep me safe. Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their tremendous support and wisdom. My phone has been buzzing nonstop with messages from extended family members for the past 48 hours, which has been very taxing. The circumstances have changed in unexpected ways. My mother wrote me a long email detailing Ashley's children's daily problems, along with comprehensive pictures of my nieces and nephews. The oldest, who is currently in kindergarten, is exhibiting early behavioral problems. The second child's health issues necessitate regular medical care. Another is on the way, while the third is still a toddler. A communication from an old family friend who teaches at Ashley's old high school was what really got to me. She informed me that in order to pay for Ashley's costs and medical bills, my parents have been taking out loans. My father has delayed his retirement indefinitely, and they have already remortgaged their home. Ashley personally sent a direct message, which was the most unexpected development. She reached out for the first time in 6 years, not to apologize but to let her big sister know that she had changed and needed her. She talked about acknowledging her past sins and is attending therapy. Although I've seen this pattern before, I still have a part of me that wants to believe her. In order to keep both physical and emotional distance from the family, my fiancé Nathan proposed a compromise, providing financial support for the kids' schooling through a trust fund. It's an intriguing idea that would enable me to assist the defenseless kids without being embroiled in the family strife. All of this is still registering in my mind. Seeing those pictures of the children, who are innocent in all of this, has made me feel conflicted, even though my logical side knows I owe them nothing. When I make a choice about Nathan's suggestion, I'll provide another update. I need some time right now to process everything without having to deal with family pressure all the time. Update 2. Over the last 24 hours, everything has drastically changed. My mother called me in an emergency last night. Ashley had been involved in a severe vehicle accident. Another automobile ran a red light and collided with her car while she was driving alone. The situation was dire because she was pregnant. I got into my car and drove to Connecticut for 4 hours without giving it any thought. It felt unreal to enter that hospital. As he paced the corridor in his faded suit, my father appeared to be much older than his years. When she saw me, my mother lost it all. I hadn't actually seen them in person for 6 years. Although Ashley's injuries were not life-threatening because of the airbags, the doctors added, they had to perform an emergency C-section in order to save the baby. With a questionable prognosis, the premature baby is currently in the NICU. My biggest surprise was going back to the house I grew up in. I grudgingly complied with my parents' request that I remain rather than book a hotel. Entering my former room felt like entering a time portal. My old desk was still in its original condition, my architecture designs were still attached to the walls, And even my high school trophies were still neatly arranged. Everything was just as I had left it 6 years prior. Then it dawned on me that they hadn't actually converted my room into an area for Ashley. The whole needing the room pretext had been nothing more than a pretext. Another unanticipated emotional moment was meeting my nieces and nephews. I was astonished to hear Charlie, 6 million, the oldest, say, "Aunt Rebecca, I know you from the pictures." My parents had apparently informed them about their aunt, who constructs stunning structures, in spite of everything. After I assisted them in building a block tower, the smaller ones, Ava, 4F, and Lucas, 2M, who had been timid at first, quickly warmed up. After 3 days here, I'm learning new things that make my emotions even more complicated. I discovered a stack of unsent letters from my father while searching through some old documents for Ashley's insurance information. They were letters of apologies that he never mailed, all addressed to me and dated throughout the previous 6 years. Tears appeared to have soiled several of them. Yesterday, Nathan flew in to help me get through this. I became aware of how much these children deserve to be free from the chaos they were born into as I watched him engage with my nieces and nephew, using play to teach them basic engineering concepts. Ashley is still in and out of consciousness, but she is stable presently. The baby's condition is still dire. Although I've taken an emergency leave of absence, I have some important project deadlines to attend to in Boston next week. How I feel about things is still a mystery to me. My fury is still there, but it's mixed up with other feelings I can't quite put my finger on. The youngsters who somehow know about me, the preserved chamber, and the unsent letters are all making me rethink how I perceive the previous 6 years. I have to return to the hospital right now to get an update on the baby's health. Next week, when I return to Boston, I will write more. I'm just attempting to live day by day for the time being. Update 3. After spending another week in Connecticut, this time with Nathan, I just got back to Boston. It was a complex experience. Ashley asked me to invite him expressly because she wanted to meet the person who makes her sister happy. The dynamics were revealing and unpleasant. I made a startling discovery while we were there. I discovered years' worth of Ashley's treatment records while assisting my mother with organizing some medical paperwork. My parents never disclosed to me that she had been dealing with bipolar disorder since she was in her teens. Manic episodes occurred at the same time as the numerous pregnancies and relationship problems. This information adds another level of complexity to the process, but it does not justify the way they treated me. The most pivotal event occurred when I spoke with Ashley privately in her hospital room. She was more lucid than I had seen her in years, most likely as a result of taking her medications as prescribed following the accident. She acknowledged that, even in high school, she had envied my success and security. "You made everything look so easy," she stated. And I felt like the family disappointment in comparison. Neither of us missed the irony. Nathan's presence proved to be quite important. I was too deeply invested to notice what he saw. One evening at supper, he pointed out that my father was unable to look me in the eye, displaying signals of intense embarrassment instead of the apathy I had always imagined. Additionally, he saw my mother's tense tendency to begin statements and then stop them quickly, seemingly out of fear of saying the wrong thing. The children now play a big role in my emotional equation. Charlie, 6 million, my oldest nephew, showed me his architectural drawings, which were sloppy but sincere attempts to replicate images of my work that my parents must have shown him. When the younger ones, Ava, 4F, and Lucas, 2M, begin referring to Nathan as uncle, it has a deeper impact on him than he anticipated. The infant will need to remain in the NICU for at least another month, although her condition has stabilized. My parents have been sleeping in the waiting area on shifts, refusing to leave their grandchildren alone, according to a nurse who spoke to us during one of our hospital stays. They appear emotionally and physically worn out. I've made some sensible choices. A family therapist with expertise in intergenerational trauma is what I'm setting up. I've also discussed working remotely for a few days every month with my company. I haven't changed my mind about returning to Connecticut though. I now live and work in Boston. On the way back to Boston, Nathan and I had a lengthy conversation. His statement, "Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't forgiving others. It's forgiving yourself for still caring," really resonated with me. I've been feeling bad about not being able to control my rage in its purest, protective form, so this really spoke to me. I have a crucial client meeting tomorrow, so I must concentrate. Strangely, at the moment, routine work duties feel both anchoring and inconsequential. After our first family therapy appointment, which is set for next week, I'll provide another update. Update 4, something important happened during my parents' trip to Boston last weekend, so I had to write this update. You read correctly. They traveled to Boston ostensibly to talk about important issues pertaining to the family situation. I initially consented to meet them in a neutral setting, a peaceful cafe close to the public garden. But they persisted in touring my residence because they claimed to be interested in learning more about my life. I reluctantly consented after speaking with Nathan and establishing explicit guidelines on the length of their stay. It was surprising how they responded to my house. Normally stoic, my father broke down when he saw my architecture awards in my home office. However, their true purpose caught me completely off guard. They produced paperwork that demonstrated they had been covertly putting money aside for me ever since they expelled me. I've never witnessed my father sobbing so much in my life. He clarified that for 6 years, they had established a different savings account and contributed the amount equal to my college tuition each month. It has grown to a significant amount with interest. Their justification? They intended to leave it in their will because they were too embarrassed to deal with me personally. A fierce confrontation resulted from this revelation. I let out years' worth of suppressed rage because I could no longer contain it. "Do you think money can fix what you did?" I yelled. "I lived in my vehicle. I didn't eat. I tried to keep up my grades by working till I was worn out." My father then made a statement that really stopped me cold. "We don't expect forgiveness," he stated. "We just want you to know that your suffering has haunted us every single day." He then showed me his diary, which detailed all of my accomplishments that he had followed over the years via social media and professional networks. He mentioned my advancements, my first significant project, and even the Sustainable Design Prize I received the previous year. After sobbing quietly, my mother finally opened out about Ashley's past mental health issues. Evidently, they had observed similar behavioral tendencies in Ashley's early years but disregarded the warning signs in favor of managing me as the stable child. She acknowledged that their parenting style had been completely incorrect. When they mentioned their most recent worries, the topic of conversation changed. They disclosed that Marcus, Ashley's ex-husband, is attempting to obtain full custody of their child by using the accident and Ashley's history of mental illness. Just as she is beginning to stabilize with her new medicine regimen, they are concerned that this could lead to another breakdown. This is when the situation becomes complex. I'm no longer being asked to relocate back. Rather, they are asking me to assist them in locating a reputable mental health center in Boston for Ashley and the child after she is discharged from the NICU. In order to assist with the other children while Ashley receives the care she needs, they wish to sell their Connecticut home and relocate closer. Nathan, who remained close by to provide assistance if necessary, subsequently made a significant observation. They're finally acknowledging their mistakes and trying to find actual solutions instead of just dumping responsibilities on you. I'm still taking it all in. Although the money they save doesn't change the past, their persistent covert efforts at making amends reveal a level of regret I hadn't previously thought of. My father's journal seems like a heartbreaking reminder of what might have been, a father who was proud of his daughter's accomplishments but was too embarrassed to say so out loud. To learn more about Ashley's custody dispute and what part, if any, I should play in it, I'm meeting with a family law lawyer tomorrow. Additionally, I'm looking into psychiatric hospitals that focus in postpartum mental health treatment. Regarding my assistance with Ashley's treatment plans, I have not responded to them. Although I have a strong desire to uphold rigid limits, I also acknowledge that this could be an opportunity for genuine, structural change in our family's dynamic. This time, with the right boundaries and expert assistance, things could be different. Once I've decided how I want to participate in these new developments, I'll provide another update. Update 5. I've made some decisions regarding my relationship with my family going forward after giving it a lot of thought and attending multiple family therapy sessions. Initially, in response to my parents' inquiry concerning Ashley's care, I assisted them in locating a respectable mental health and postpartum care center in Boston. I did, however, clarify that my participation would be strictly limited and professional. Although I will not be personally involved in Ashley's daily care, I was able to connect them with the resources they needed through my professional network. My parents' savings account has been transformed into a trust fund, of which I am the trustee, for Ashley's children's education. This arrangement guarantees that the funds will be utilized suitably while upholding professional boundaries. Nathan used his financial planning and contacts to assist put things up. I never imagined how my relationship with my family would change over time. I've developed a methodical approach to keeping in touch that safeguards my personal well-being, even if I won't be returning to Connecticut or taking on any caregiving duties. We've decided to continue family therapy sessions and have frequent video chats with the kids, with Ashley being contacted directly only in case of emergencies. Even though my mother still calls a lot, I've seen a big shift in the way she handles things. She no longer makes demands or guilt trips before providing family information, and she respects my limits when I tell her that I'm too busy to talk. My father made the most unexpected revelation. In addition to sending me a formal written apology outlining particular occasions in which he failed me as a father, he began visiting his own therapist. Instead of the cliched, "I'm sorry for everything," I had anticipated, I received a considerate acknowledgement of particular negative behaviors and how they affected my life. After being admitted to the treatment center, Ashley is beginning to show recovery. At last, the infant is well and no longer in the NICU. I've made arrangements for a child psychologist to work with her older children to help them deal with these changes while I keep an emotional distance. I've decided not to include my family too much in our wedding arrangements, which Nathan and I are moving forward with. Although they will be invited as guests, friends who helped me through my darkest moments will play the customary family roles in the wedding. I am content with my choices as I look to the future. It's a carefully planned relationship that safeguards my mental health while recognizing the intricacy of familial ties, even though it's not the total reunion some might expect for. I've discovered that taking care of family members doesn't have to mean compromising my own health or giving in to toxic relationships. There isn't a tidy, happy ending to my story where everything is forgiven and forgotten. Rather, it ends realistically, with relationships being reframed on better terms, professional assistance being sought, and boundaries being upheld. That's the best we can do at times, and that's acceptable. My last update will be this one. We are grateful to everyone who helped and counseled us along the way. I was able to strike a balance between self-preservation and compassion because of your ideas. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.